Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.
The following podcast may contain discussions supported by science that may be considered dangerous to some listeners and conspiracy theorists. Discretion is advised.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by Lucky Bastard Distillers, Saskatchewan's premier distillery, and by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, brewed in the heart of Regina. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only meat and buns podcast. That sounds weird. I'm Joel Gasson with John Fraser as usual, and we totally didn't just come up with the opening of this program like a minute ago.
Literally during the preamble. We had gone the whole day, and it's rare that you text me during the day and be like, bro, what the hell's our open?
Mm-hmm.
And not gonna lie, with my mind in holiday mode, it's not working at full capacity, nor is it ever really working at full capacity. But up until about a minute ago, we had nothing, and then like the heavens opened, and a typical cluster F of a John situation. We are provided with an open that involves meat and buns, and we're not talking about that one podcast with the woman who did the thing with the other dude for the first time ever. That was also about meat and buns.
Mm-hmm. So we are, of course, going to talk about the Riders' loss to the Lions. It was good in one sense, in the fact that I think we can brush aside concerns we may have had about the defense.
Yes.
So that's a positive. As for the rest of the team, the special teams are fine as usual. The offense, though, there's a lot to talk about there, both in terms of quarterback, in terms of how they're approaching the offense, and how that's probably going to be a problem against the Toronto Argonauts.
Big problem. Like, you're an 11-point dog at a neutral site problem. So even Vegas, in all their infinite wisdom, is like, you're in trouble there, guys.
The 10.5 or whatever I saw that might be generous, even considering it was like 9.5, I believe, in BC, and BC covered that. So
yeah, quite easily. Although, in fairness, before we get into dogs and buns, that defense does do enough to be a sneaky cover.
Yeah, they do, but I don't trust the offense to do quite enough to really keep it within 10 points.
That was a horror show. We were talking Tino Sinceri flashbacks.
A little bit. I will get into that in a bit, but we teased it enough, I guess. Because dogs and buns are always a bunch of teases. So what's the situation here, John? It sounds like, in unsurprisingly fashion, for some reason you are very particular about something when it comes to food.
Which is funny, because I'm not a picky eater. I'm just...
No, not in terms of actually eating, but in terms of, like, the specifics of eating.
Right, okay. So, fun fact about me that I'm surprised hasn't come up on any Ask John Anything episodes in the past 5 years, but I guess
no one wants to ask you about your sausage.
Or how I like it. Or how I will only eat Smokies or hot dogs or sausage or whatever in the proper bun. Okay, I know a lot of people are like, and maybe I just grew up like...
Apparently you grew up hoity-toity and never put a hot dog around a piece of white bread.
Oh, no, you can't. You just like... So, like, obviously I'm spoiled that a hot dog only fits in a bun. Like, I will not eat... If you offer me a hot dog and you don't have a proper hot dog bun, I will decline that hot dog.
So you wouldn't eat it raw either?
No, I also wouldn't eat it raw.
Not in terms of cooked or uncooked, but
see, okay,
open to the wind.
A sausage I'll eat raw. A hot dog, you need that like bun. You need it betwixt the buns to really enjoy it.
I will disagree with that. I think a hot dog, a specifically barbecued, charred to shit hot dog, on its own, on just a napkin with some mustard, is perfect.
Okay, that is the one exception, is the charred to shit, preferably over charcoal.
Yeah.
barbecued hot dog. Okay,
that's like a big time memory I have. My grandparents, that was one of their things they served when we had backyards in their backyard. The barbecues in their backyard, sort of before supper, was here's a big plate of hot dogs. Here's some condiments. Sorry, we don't have any buns. But it wasn't part of it because if you're having it before you're eating like burgers or steak or whatever, the bun's just unnecessarily filling you up.
Also fair. See, I would eat it like that before I ate it in a piece of white bread, a piece of whole grain bread, or even
whole grain doesn't work. It's got to be like the only time I've ever really wrapped a hot dog in a piece of bread is when it's like shitty mass-produced bread that never molds.
Yeah, but it still leaks through. Then you got mustard on your hands and grease, and the taste just isn't right. So I'm very particular about this, but also so tonight for supper, as we are in full, like, we're leaving the house for a couple weeks, like, full clean out the fridge and the freezer mode. So there's not a lot of options right now in my house. So, a little corn, little smokies tonight for supper. And they had buns. So again, because of a lack of food selections and me not wanting to prepare anything as we leave in a couple days, I started preparing my lunch for tomorrow, and I look and I'm like, okay, there's like dinner buns, and I can't find more hot dog buns. So I'm like, okay, here we go. I don't like doing this, but because of us going on holidays right away, this is my only option. I don't want to spend money on food tomorrow. So I cut the sausage in half and put it on a hamburger bun and packed it up myself for lunch, and I feel terrible about it. I hate it. The ratio is going to be completely off. It's going to come and that's the problem when you put the rolly thing, the circular girthy thing between the buns.
You cut it lengthwise, so it's not rolly anymore.
Well, no, I always cut it so it's girthy and rolly.
But if you're not putting it in the proper shaped bun, you cut it in a way that fits into the bun.
Okay, so you're saying cut it
cut it right down the middle, and then cut it in half again, and you have 4 little strips basically.
Whoa. I've never thought of this before. But I guess because I never, I would
You've
be
clearly never creatively had to come up with lunch before, because, sometimes after we make supper, and generally my lunch the next day is leftovers.
Yes.
There's been some scenarios where I'm like, okay, we are out of buns, I will eat this and this instead. Or I will just eat a hamburger in a takeout tray.
Right. So, see, I am very much okay, I'll whip up a quick cheese sauce, or I'll cook some chicken breast. One of my sneaky talents actually is cooking, right? So I'll take my secret barbecue spice, throw it on some chicken breast before I compromise on my hot dog and bun or sausage and bun, right? So that's why I've never really been in the spot. So I've never really thought of it doing it that way, and it might work better, because my biggest thing is, and I know this is going to happen to me tomorrow at work. Well, actually it won't now, because I am going to go upstairs, open up my lunch kit, and do it your way. I'm just anticipating biting into the dog, the other half yarding out, probably on my gray work pants, and then I got to deal with a barbecue stain on my pants at work the entire day. And you know what really makes you want to buy an extended warranty from a guy? Barbecue sauce stains.
I mean, you can play the sympathy card.
Look
at this poor guy. This guy can't even afford laundry detergent. We should get the extended warranty and the undercoating.
And give him a hug and take his under. You know what? Maybe I'll try that. You know what? It is also free ice cream day at work tomorrow, otherwise known as the day where I, lactose intolerant myself, intentionally give myself the shits at work because I'm also cheap and can't turn down free ice cream.
I'm honestly surprised you never thought of cutting a sausage that way, because I've done it the next morning after we had them for supper to make breakfast sandwiches on a bagel or something.
Never. Never before in my life. Because
we thought we had this great opening plan. It was still pretty good, but it ended up being actually very educational for you. But of course, lots of rider news to talk about, as they seem to have some education of their own to be doing. Of course, Trevor Harris still out. Mason Fine. We'll talk about his performance. We'll talk about the offense overall, and how it's going to be tough against Toronto in Halifax. But as usual, John, before we get into all that, for the Pile of Bones Brewing Company, what is in the glass this week?
Vodka. Just lucky bastard vodka, lemon, ice. Like I said, and it's not even real lemon. It's real lemon, like the squeeze juice that I keep there for emergencies. Because again, trying to keep fruits out of my house so I don't come back to a bunch of fruit flies when I'm back from vacation. So keep it simple, stupid. Little lucky bastard bitters, vodka, ice in a big glass. Not that I put a lot of vodka in here, but Same amount of vodka, but in a big glass so it survives the podcast.
Fair enough. For me, I have from the multinational brewing company, it is Spruce Campbell. It's a spruce tip pale ale that they make, 5.3%. So it's not quite super hoppy like an IPA, like those old piney IPAs. I don't know if you remember those back in the day.
Oh, yeah, I do,
People really used to lean into those. But yeah, made with local spruce tips and just kind of a little smooth, but it's just a nice little bite as well.
Sounds like something that I will definitely enjoy in Northern Ontario because there's lots of spruce trees up there.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe I could just like make my own, just throw some spruce. In fairness, usually the first day I'm back in Ontario, I get over the stress of a 16-hour drive with 3 children by drinking myself into a blind stupor.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll just throw some spruce in there and give it a try.
Maybe. I mean, some Rider fans may have been drinking a little bit this past weekend. Not so much, I think, because they lost to the Lions. I think for the most part that was generally, understood that was likely to happen.
Yeah.
But as we talked about last week, this week, and I think even now the week after, considering everything that happened, and they travel out to Montreal after that. So it's like Vancouver, Halifax, Montreal, with stops in Regina in between. Cool.
Just a brutal schedule, even if they were good.
Mm-hmm. So it's very much right now in a process over results sort of situation, and if you're looking back at the Lions game, I don't know if there's a whole lot of process to be happy about. Obviously, the positive is the defense came to play.
Yes, absolutely.
Vernon Adams Jr. unfortunately getting injured in that game as the sort of the rash of injuries to starting quarterbacks in this league happens yet again for another year.
Sounds like he might be out short term though, which is after I sent you some video of him trying to ride the bike afterwards and thought, oh God, he's done too.
Yeah, that one didn't look quite as bad as the Trevor Harris situation, but it still didn't look very good overall. But I mean, this was a team that, for a guy, Jason Shivers, who comes from the Chris Jones School of Defense in the CFL, for that team to be last in the league in sacks is kind of shocking to see. So the fact that they picked up 4 and they were in VA and Dane Evans' face most of the night, I would look up the pressures, but who knows if they're correct or not. And so, the eye test, because that's all really we can go off right now for the most part with CFL stats, to me suggested the pressure and the defense and all of that was there. Couple blow-ups in the secondary, but I mean, that BC receiving core is going to happen, is good. I think you're going to have to accept that a little bit, though they did add Tremaine Washington this week, so maybe that'll eventually sort of help boost the depth in that secondary a little bit that is a little banged up itself as well. But outside of the defense, so the defense looked really good, as I talked about, and I think, both of us were sort of maybe low-key a little more worried about it than we were the offense.
Yeah.
But now all of the worry is strictly on the offense, and it's one of those scenarios where I don't really know which lane to go in yet as to what the purest problem, what the sort of the root cause is. Because I think neither of us are necessarily in the Mason Fine is a good quarterback camp.
Oh, absolutely not.
But I don't think I'm necessarily in the what the Riders are trying to do on offense is good either camp. So Mason Fine can maybe be better than he is in the right system, but I still don't know how much of that, how much growth there is available to that if he was in a situation where it was opened up a little more for him. So I'm just kind of stuck in the spot right now where I'm like, I don't believe in Mason Fine, but I think this team also hates offense. What do I think?
To me, I would put it more on Fine than the offense.
Okay.
You looked at when Trevor Harris was there, I mean, they definitely weren't world beaters, but there's a method to Trevor Harris's madness, right? When you watch Trevor Harris, even back to his years, and he's always been a really high completion percentage guy because he likes to use those underneath routes. He likes to use the short routes like we saw Mason Fine use ad nauseum this weekend. And then he can connect on a deep pass or a mid-range pass, to keep guys on their toes and to move the ball down the field. So the difference is like you have a offense designed for a quarterback that knows how to read 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to go deep here. Being used by a guy that, stares at his deep targets like me playing flag football going open up, open up, open up. Now I'm going to throw it deep. Oh, I got intercepted again, right? So I would put this on fine because I thought the offense with Harris was boring but effective. Like I don't think like yeah, you had the miracle drive against Calgary, and you had, and I get it, Mason Fine had the Hail Mary on that, but it just struck me as watching the first few games this year that, yeah, they're not going to be world beaters. You're not going to want to get into a shootout with BC or with Toronto because you're not going to win it. But it looked like it could win games with Trevor Harris, and with BC basically saying, okay, we're going to stop the run. We're going to completely eliminate Jamal Morrow from this game. And we're going to make Mason Fine beat us, and he absolutely couldn't, right? Have you ever seen a more underwhelming 278-yard, 31 out of 40 game?
Well, no, because usually if you've attempted 40 passes, you're generally at least at 400 yards.
Right, and he's at 278 because everything was like, yeah. And again, like all Tino Sinceri jokes aside, this very much reminds me of, and in the worst ways, reminded me of Tino Sinceri when he was the Rider starting quarterback, just never looking deep and never throwing deep and just taking those short passes. So where he'd look...
to a degree, I will say I think Mason Fine is better than Tino Sinceri.
I'm better than Tino Sinceri.
Well, no, but I think Tino Sinceri made a lot more critical errors than Mason Fine did. Mason Fine's errors kind of came when they had to, for the most part.
Yeah.
Like he tried to stay patient with it, and it never worked. So I don't know if that was him making the decisions to throw there, or that's what the plan was. But either way, I would say I don't think, sure, stylistically and maybe in terms of, I know you posted the pictures, motion wise, there may be some similarities there, but I'm not willing to put Mason Fine in Tino Sinceri category
yet. The key word being yet. I thought just the way that he kept looking underneath all the time, and
but Tino Sinceri couldn't complete those either, though. Actually,
no, that's the difference. Yes, Tino Sinceri would have been 10 of 40 for 100 yards,
but here's the thing, and I know college is not pro football, but Mason Fine ran the air raid in college.
Yes,
the guy can throw. The guy can throw a lot. Let him do it. And if he can't do it at the pro level, then we know we can't do it, and you either adapt or you move on to someone else.
Well, but I did find it interesting, and it was Glenn Suter actually making, as he worked the game with Dusty, Glenn making a couple good points, which, again, Glenn's been a bit of a mixed bag the last couple of years, but he really was able to key in on how long Mason Fine was looking at his receivers on his deep routes.
Want a website with unmatched power, speed, and control? Try Bluehost Cloud, the new web hosting plan from Bluehost, built for WordPress creators by WordPress experts. With 100% uptime, incredible load times, and 24/7 WordPress priority support, your sites will be lightning fast with global reach. And with Bluehost Cloud, your sites can handle surges in traffic no matter how big. Plus, you automatically get daily backups and world-class security. Get started now at Bluehost.com.
Yeah. You can get away with that in college. At the professional level, the second you lock eyes onto a guy for more than a split second, everybody's moving that way because they know exactly where you're going. So maybe the lights were just too bright, and maybe Mason Fine wasn't quite feeling comfortable. But, if he's going to have any success, you can't be staring down a receiver knowing you're going to go there. I mean, that's kind of and I don't pretend to ever be a quarterback.
No.
I mean, I had some moderate success in the Lloydminster Flag Football League for 3 seasons, but outside of that, I had really good receivers. But no, I think the problem is Fine, and BC, and again, that defense is...
I mean, yes, the other side of it is the BC Lions deserve some credit for being maybe the best defense in the CFL.
Oh, just
if not maybe 2 behind like Toronto or something.
Right. Like it's amazing how good that defense was. Like, to hold Jamal Morrow. Mm-hmm. And again, you and I just watched this as not coaches and just observers. Like, I didn't think the offensive line looked as bad as they did at times last year, but to hold Jamal Morrow to less than a yard per carry, like, that's pretty impressive. Like, that is some great game planning. That's some great strategy. And again, that's BC going, okay, Mason Fine, go ahead and beat us, and he couldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, a lot of the passes Fine was supposed to they were hoping for Yak, and to BC's credit, they didn't give them Yak.
No.
So
well, and that was it. That seemed to be the game plan. Like, hope you throw to a guy and makes a play, and you've done your part in completing the pass. But goodness gracious, that defense was off the charts good.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that sort of Jamal Morrow and his 1 yard per carry. This is where I don't think you can let Kelly Jeffrey and the offense off the hook. Was a few decisions that were made play call wise.
So many bad decisions this game.
3rd and 2 at their own 42, I believe, which I have defended Greg Dickinson on the fact that he went for it. They just picked a very piss poor play to run that took, when it's not only a running play when they were running well, but a sort of a long developing running play that didn't work out very well. Surprise, surprise. And then the 2nd and 5, basically with the game on the line at their own 19, I believe it was, and they dial up a run play, and even sooner after that was saying you could see Kelly Jeffrey upset that he made that call. It's like, well, yeah, no shit. Your running back has averaged 1 yard per carry this game. What are you doing? And your quarterback is thrown. He can prove he can throw 3 to 5 yards.
Well, and that's exactly it. And I'll never understand. And again, I say this as a man that just is a large watcher of football. Mm-hmm. Why the hell do teams go shotgun?
I don't know.
On 3rd and short, and when you're running,
it's such. I don't know. Like, I know it's a big thing where I think a lot of these quarterbacks just aren't used to going under center anymore because they generally don't in college.
Right.
And only a few really do with somewhat regularity in the NFL even anymore. So, but I understand. But yeah, like on the 5 yard play, sure. But when they needed to, like, yeah, I don't know.
Especially on a 3rd and 2 when you're running. Like, let's face it, in the CFL, if you can't get 2 yards, you're doing something wrong. Like, you can fall over and get a yard for free if your offensive line gives a crap. But even at that point, so bring in Shea Patterson, because Shea Patterson takes that hand off, right?
Or
like
7'4", 300-pound Jake Dolegala, like, because they brought him in earlier in the game because all year Shea Patterson had been the short yardage guy, and then it seemed to be on an even shorter package they brought in the bigger quarterback,
which makes sense.
So.
I mean, 2 yards is 6 feet.
Yeah,
you can just fall over, reach out your arms, fall over, boom. You got 2 yards there, 8 feet tall, Jake Dolegala. I mean, he's not quite the height of my boy Taylor Cornelius, but
no.
It seems like such a mess. And you and I, speaking of terrible coaching decisions, the end of that game sequence was horrible. Like, that was just like
a clinic on doing just about everything.
Yes.
Wrong in a way. Like, it started off so well. So there was, of course, the 3rd and 2 from the 10 plus whatever it was. I don't remember the exact yard line.
Yes.
Where, of course, Glenn Suter and a lot of people talked about take the points. Like, no, you are this close. Go for the first down. You had not scored a touchdown all game. You absolutely, positively need to score a touchdown on this drive. So credit Craig Dickinson. He went for it. For some reason they ran again. Jamal Morrow barely got it, but at least he got there. They got the first down. 3 plays later, they kick the field goal, and I'm just like, what? If you were absolutely in any scenario in your head thinking at all about settling for 3 points and that, you do it earlier rather than later to save the clock. And
you do it from the 10-ish.
Yeah. If they'd done it the first time, I would have been upset, but at least you could make somewhat the argument. Once you got the first down again, there was absolutely no argument to be made at that point to not go for that was not 3 down territory.
No, and as it needs to be, right? Yeah. It's so much easier, especially in the CFL. You got to think you get a decent return. You're up to the 30. Basically, with Brett Lowther, you're looking at getting to the 45, BC's 45 for a field goal, right? Like a decent return. You're probably
you're indoors. The wind's not going to be much of a factor. Like
that's exactly it. You've got ideal kicking conditions, so yeah, to go for it, and then not only that. But then with enough time on the clock to kick it away and let your defense come out that has been great this game. You onside kick it and basically give BC winning field percentage with Sean White, who is far better than Brett Lowther this year.
Yeah, like there are scenarios where, of course, you have to onside kick. And you and I are both... That
was not one of them.
No, you and I are both fans of aggression.
Yes.
But when if it was a 3-point game at that scenario, I could live with an onside kick. Yep. Because then, at worst, you give up the field goal, it's still a 1-possession game.
Yes.
If you give up the field goal in that scenario, then it's a 2-possession game. So you had to kick that one deep.
Yes. And your defense had been so good.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it basically was a 2-and-out after that. It was a very short drive that BC had. There was time on the clock left had they kicked it deep.
Yeah, exactly. But instead you bring out Sean White and he goes 4 for 4 and the game's over. So it was, and I try not to read, and this goes back to our friend Greg, who's been on this program with the Piffles podcast. It says, I try not to read or listen as I don't want other people's opinions creeping in subconsciously, right? And it is funny, like I was actually reading some stuff from the guys from Piffles today that, like, just questioning every decision and is this going to be the end of Craig Dickinson? And I forget who, it was either Alex or Saf that wrote this article, but
I think it was Saf, yeah.
That pointed out, like, Craig Dickinson's basically only here because of Chris Jones's evil plan to give everybody money. And he, at first he made rookie mistakes, and we like the aggression, and we like the kind of, leader he is, the room he runs. He seems like a great guy to go for a beer with, but like...
And Nokomis Brown, to be exact.
That's exactly it. Guy's got good taste. So he strikes me like, I don't know if during the bye week you can like lock him in his house and make him play Madden all day.
Well, then he's going to think there's a fourth down.
Hey, at least it's not Bart Andrews saying you can punt on any down, right? Like, which again you can because of the onside.
In theory, you can, yeah. Which sidebar, great. We saw 2 of them this past weekend. Finally,
brilliant. I want to see more of that. That's a great, especially if you have some talented kickers. That's a great play, right? Mm-hmm. Keep guys on their heels, go for it. Use those quirky CFL rules. We're all here for that kind of stuff. So it just, I don't know. I don't think Fine was very good at all. Morrow wasn't very good at all. But you flip some of those coaching decisions, and the defense maybe wins you a game you shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
Right? Like they at least would have had the ball. Like, hypothetically, if you score from the 6-yard line, kick it deep, you're at least getting a chance to get the ball back, and at worst case, tie it up. I'm not saying they would have scored from the 6 going.
And that was sort of my thought process, and the thing I said about it was, okay, despite how poor the coaching was down the stretch of that game, and a lot of the decisions they made in that game, it didn't necessarily 100% lose them the game because they still had to execute. And the way that game had gone, I wouldn't necessarily believed that they would have executed what they needed to execute in order to pull off the win late. The coaches just did not set them up for the best chance to win that game, and that's when we're talking about process over results.
Right. Now, okay. This goes back to my crazy conspiracy theory I debuted last week. The Riders, haven't really made any trades. They haven't really done anything.
Well, I mean, they signed a former CFL interception leader this week.
Right. But I mean, they haven't. Right, that is a thing. But that's a guy that has probably already got a big chunk of his salary and bonuses and stuff this year. You probably got for cheap, right? This still leads me back. I still think there's smoke to the McLeod Bethel Thompson fire.
I don't think there is.
I will probably die on this hill, and it'll be just like my Johnny Manziel takes. But
at least this one we'll forget about within a few months.
This one won't.
We won't be doing this podcast 10 years from now, and we'll still be making fun of you for saying that Johnny Manziel was going to win a Grey Cup with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Or the Montreal Alouettes, whoever the hell he was with.
No, it was Hamilton. It was that long ago. It was after he signed in Hamilton. And the fact that joke spans almost a decade already and 2 different podcast shows just how horrific of a Fraser take that was. And I will stand by it that yeah, it was a terrible fucking take. But at least the Riders are getting some help. Maybe they have some guys that can turn
I mean, that
3-yard Mason Fine passes into something.
Yeah, I mean, some key receivers were back at practice today, and that's always good. That's important. I mean, Keon Schaefer-Baker may be getting close to making his season debut. He appeared at practice today, as did Braden Linnaeus and Jake Winicky. So, I mean, that's not nothing.
No.
If you can upgrade the receiving core and give Mason Fine better pieces, I don't think he's suddenly going to explode and become a legitimate starting quarterback in this league, but you could at least maybe survive to some degree, maybe.
This reminds me of the take from last year when I said I'd have Taylor Cornelius over Cody Fajardo. I think now it has to be a meme that I wonder if Taylor Cornelius would ever be available.
No. I mean, Chris Jones just seems to love the guy for some reason. I don't know.
Second longest tenured starting quarterback in the CFL right now.
I mean, that says a lot to sort of the state of what's been happening with the rest of the quarterbacks in the league, but it also says a lot to what Chris Jones is doing as a head coach. But hey, if you don't block well as a receiver, you might get cut. But if you can't complete a pass, don't worry, you'll keep starting.
Oh, you're my guy. You got a big, sexy arm. You throw with that flick of the wrist while athletic, highly touted Canadian sits on the bench. All while, and you brought this to my attention, the quote he made today about the PFF stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't care about that PFF stuff. I need toughness. Like, yes, you don't care about an organization that makes their money off of grading players for almost every professional league in North America.
Yeah.
Although, just don't go looking for the complete CFL stats, because in the 20 minutes in which you were doing father duty while I sit in my basement while my kids are at a spray park, I was trying to look, like, I even had my credit card out. I was going to pay for it because I wanted to look at how the Riders' offensive line graded out in that game against BC. But if you go to the PFF site, doesn't even acknowledge the CFL.
Of course not.
Like, you've got the XFL, you got the USFL, and obviously you have the NFL, and it's even got like a tab that's like other leagues and how we do our business and blah, 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 blah. No, there is nothing about it. Yes, PFF.
Colin Kelly was apparently one of the top graded offensive linemen of the week, so I mean that's something.
That's all we know. Hey,
I believe I saw the guy who's like running the PFF CFL stuff. The interesting note to stick with the Maurice French stuff, apparently his numbers are like the best when Taylor Cornelius has been throwing to him, so he's been like Cornelius' best receiver this year, but hey, what do we know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not as much as Chris Jones, who can cut guys for not blocking, but so what do they do if Mason Fine continues to be dog water?
I mean, I think then you got to go to Jake Delagala. But we know what coaches are like in this league. Yeah. Ottawa had two quarterbacks better than, Nick Arbuckle, and it took injuries to him and the other guy to maybe find their best guy to put in there. So, I mean, realistically, if Mason Fine does not, he doesn't necessarily have to win this game, but if he doesn't take a step forward, if there isn't some sign of progress from him this week, then I think Jake's got to start the week after. Because I don't think Shea Patterson's there yet. Maybe, probably not. I don't know. But I think you got to give the other guys a shot if Mason Fine's not going to give you the chance to win. Because you can't be like Chris Jones and doggedly keep throwing the same guy out there even though he's crap.
Yeah. As much as I am more anti-Fine that Mason won't be fine than you are, I think you almost have to give him that home game against Ottawa. I sure. think even
maybe the timeline isn't that tight, but there has to be some degree. Like if he regresses this week or looks the same, then I think the question's up in the air. Even if he progresses just a little bit, you're like, okay, there is something that is potentially building here. If there's something that I can look forward to and thinking, okay, this guy is maybe going somewhere. Who knows how far where, but at least it's not, this was the same or worse.
Right. No, and I just think that, and I think I said it last week, that, and I've said it around work a lot, you could even have the second coming of Doug Flutie, and this would have been probably the toughest 2-game stretch they would have had for anybody.
Yeah.
Like you joke that, here you are, you're at BC, which probably has the best defense in the league.
Yeah, and is a tough travel no matter what, usually. Even though the Riders have won there a bunch in a row, and I hadn't really actually realized that, but...
Yeah, neither had I.
But I mean, BC until last year was pretty bad for a while, too, so...
True, yeah. Especially after Michael Riley called it quits there. They went through a bit of a transition. Now, you basically have a night or two in Regina, back at home. Then you got to fly all the way to the East Coast.
And because it's like neutral site, touchdown Atlantic game, it's not, I don't think it's just your typical come in, the day before the game, walk through and go. I'm sure there's a few other little commitments involved with that for the weekend, I assume.
Which might be a blessing in disguise to kind of get your body clock on Atlantic time a little bit. And at least it's a 2:00 game. So, I mean, it's not like the BC games, right? So, I mean, there are, you get a little hype around it, but I just think that even if Mason Fine is,
right?
Yeah, I think even if Mason Fine is meh, I think you got to give him that Ottawa game.
Well, if he's meh, like more, like a better degree of meh than last week, yeah.
Right. Because to me, if you give him the Ottawa game, and he's dog water there again, you go to Dalagala, you're in Montreal, and then you get to host BC before going into a bye week, right? So, and a bye week in which they're going to, coax McLeod Bethel Thompson out of CFL retirement. And then he'll come back.
Maybe. I don't see it happening.
I would say that we would make a wager on it for next time we see each other in person, but we are exceptionally cursed at that even these days. So
yeah, we are.
Yeah. Nothing like my kids getting sick before, a planned Sunday visit to your place. So otherwise, I would make a wager, but it'll take until the Regina men's bonds bill before it'll pay off.
Shop Plato's Closet tax-free August 2nd through 4th for back-to-school styles. We sell the trendy, gently used styles you need to make a difference in the world and in your wallet for back-to-school shopping. Save up to 70% off regular retail prices by choosing recycled styles. Save even more when you shop tax-free this weekend. Make a change that others can respect and repeat. Shop Plato's Closet in North Charleston and West Ashley this year for your back-to-school looks. Plato's Closet, located in West Ashley on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard and North Charleston on Rivers Avenue.